whatever else they were also pro-Western Arab leaders, and they're no longer there. And what's coming next, we don't know. But what we do know is that the pro-Iranian bloc, the guys I've been talking to you about for the last 20 minutes, have themselves, at least up until now, proven to be immune from the demands of democratic desires of the Arab people. Why are they immune? How have they proven to be immune? Because these are the bad guys. As I say, the Iranians and Syrians have no problem whatsoever with shooting down as many demonstrators as it takes to shoot down for them to stay in power, because these are very, very bad people. Unlike with the case of Mubarak and his backers in the United States and in Europe, who do not want to shoot down demonstrators and who therefore try to somehow meet halfway with the demands of the people. Ali Khamenei and Bashar Assad couldn't care less. They will happily inflict terror on their own people as they inflict terror on others. And this, at least up until now, not forever I hope, but at least up until now, means that they are keeping themselves in power. So what we have emerging in the Middle East then is something like a new regional Cold War. And it pits two blocks against, like the old Cold War, it pits two blocks against one another. On the one hand, there is pro-Western and pro-American states in the region, of which Israel is one, and some of the Arab states in the Gulf are also members of this, and one could maybe argue even that the Palestinian leadership in Ramallah is somehow aligned with this. And this bloc, pro-Western bloc, is pitted against a bloc headed by Iran and consisting of a number of states and Islamist movements who regard themselves as issuing a challenge to this pro-Western bloc. Iran itself, of course, Hezbollah and Hamas we mentioned, but also Syria is a member of this bloc. Also, Omar al-Bashir regime in Sudan is a member of this bloc. Turkey, we could talk about, is probably maybe on the way to becoming an additional presence there. And the strategy and diplomacy of this Middle East region for years to come, for the years now opening up, will be dominated by, will be defined by this contest between these two blocs. Let me just conclude by saying that in the longer term, let me begin to conclude by saying, in the longer term we have cause for optimism, because this Iran-led resistance bloc is peerlessly good at only one thing. It is peerlessly good at mobilizing large numbers of young, usually young men, who are willing to kill and die in the service of their idea. Now this is not nothing. And it's certainly not nothing in the Middle East, where the currency of political power, for better and for worse, and usually for worse, but has often been defined in precisely this way. The ones who have the largest number of young men willing to kill and die are the ones who will prevail. This is not nothing. But it's not everything either. Because the fact of the matter is that this bloc is not capable of creating and establishing societies in which people actually want to live. It's quite good at doing political violence and terror. Actually, it's very good at political violence and terror. It's not good at creating education systems. It's not good at creating economies. It's not good at creating civil society. If we think of examples of Islamist governance that exist in this region, we can think of three. One is Iran itself, one is the Hamas enclave in Gaza, and the third is the Omar al-Bashir regime in Sudan. What we can all agree, I think, or I'm sure, is that if we had to choose a Middle East country where we were going to raise our families, yeah, we wouldn't be top of the list. You know, Iran, Gaza, and Sudan. These are disaster areas. It's also a fact that I said that Islamist parties would win elections. There's one place in the region where if elections were held tomorrow, the Islamists would surely not, and that is Iran. Because the Iranians have been living for the last 30 years under Islamist government. They know exactly what it looks like and feels like. And if they had the chance, they would wipe these guys away from government. They're not going to get the chance. There isn't going to be free elections in Iran. But if there was, they would get rid of them tomorrow. As I say, the Islamists have a quality which is that the more you get to know them, actually the less attractive they seem. Yeah? And what this means is that this contradiction eventually will prove, it seems to me at least, telling. As it becomes apparent that this bloc can produce actually nothing other than political anger and political violence, but it can't produce lives in which people actually want to make their future, the future of their families, can't produce societies of this kind. So this movement will reach its top and will begin to decline. In a certain sense, it is perhaps something in common with the communist bloc and Arab nationalist bloc which preceded it. It's a similar long war, a long trajectory, and slow decline. But this contradiction is not something which is going to be apparent tomorrow morning. That's to say, it seems to me at least that this bloc is still right now in the upper stage of its trajectory. And it will take a great deal of effort and engagement and success and creative thinking on the part of those of us who are the enemies of that bloc in order to bring the victory about. Because what is being waged against Israel now by this bloc is in a certain sense a new kind of warfare. And it's not the kind of warfare which we yet have a proven record of success. I think it will be successful. But it's important to remember the wars in which Israel was successful were of a quite different kind to the one in which we are now engaged. What we know that we are good at, because we've done it in the past with success, is short, conventional wars in which army meets army, in a kinetic, high-profile engagement. But what we are up against now is a long war of attrition, which is not being waged only on the field of battle, which is not only involving military people, but which is also being waged on the political level and on the media level, on the diplomatic level. The intention of Israel's enemies is to cut off Israel from its natural hinterland of support in the West, among other things. This, by the way, is why guys like yourselves, of course, are so important in this struggle which we are engaged in, because it will be supporters of Israel, Jewish and non-Jewish, throughout the world, and especially I think in Europe, where the situation is quite precarious for Israel, who will be so important in making sure that the project of Israel's enemies to cut Israel's lines of support will not succeed. What this means is that we are, all of us here, are engaged in a very long campaign, the broad contours of which I've been trying to explain here, and really one can only, in this short amount of time that we had, give headlines rather than really go into detail. But just to conclude by saying that this is a fight or an engagement which may well still be in its opening stages. For all the experiences we've had in the last decade, may well still be in its opening stages, and has almost certainly not yet reached its height. So on that note, on that happy note, I will conclude. And we have time for, we have 20 minutes, so we have plenty of time for questions and discussion. I'll be happy to take questions then. Yes, please.
What's the situation with the nuclear threat of Iran and the position of Israel in this regard and the U.S.?
Yeah, well, the position is that both U.S. and Israeli intelligence organizations agree that it is now a matter of between 1 or 2 years. Most optimistic scenario is still a little bit further, 2015, but within 2, 3, 4 years, the Iranians will have capability of producing a nuclear weapon if they are not stopped. There are those who consider that the Iranians, in fact, have this ability today. They say they have sufficient enriched uranium in order to produce a single nuclear weapon, but that they prefer to wait until they have a larger amount to go to that breakout phase when they can produce a larger number of weapons, not simply a single primitive device. In other words, this nuclear ambition of the Iranians is very real, and it is quite close to fruition. Now, there is a problem. It would be nice if we could think of it as being used to bomb the Iranian nuclear facilities and no more problem. But it's not as simple as that. I'm no expert on air warfare, but occasionally I speak to people that are. And they tell me that if we, or if the Americans were to bomb Iranian nuclear facilities, even then, even if the raid was successful, it would only set back the Iranian nuclear program by 5 to 10 years. And that's if it was successful, and it might not be successful. So there is no easy solution to this. The reason why I didn't focus on the nuclear issue, but rather on Iran's political ambitions, was not purely by chance. The reason is as follows. It is my estimation, at least, that the Iranians, if they had a nuclear weapon, will not launch it the next day at Israel. But what they will want to do is to use their nuclear capability to render themselves immune, to render themselves invulnerable from challenge. And this will give them an umbrella, so to speak, beneath which they will then be able to get up to the kind of subversion and mischief across the region which they enjoy and which they want to do more of. And for this reason, it is very important that we do all we can to prevent a nuclear Iran. Having said that, my own view at least is that the sanctions process